Have you ever felt like as you move through life, studying, graduating, landing your first job, and checking off all the milestones in your life, somewhere along the way, you've become someone completely different than who you wanted to be? At some point in our lives, how we see ourselves starts to change. We try to fit in, adapting to ideals and expectations that were never truly ours, simply because we wanted somewhere to belong. In doing so, we lose parts of ourselves that make everything we are. And now, when we look in the mirror, all we see are fragments of who people wanted us to be. But aren't you tired of that? Isn't it time you take back what's yours? That constant battle of reclaiming those pieces of yourself is what Mob faces in the anime Mob Psycho 100. A boy born different from the rest, making his way through a world that values normality rather than uniqueness. He stopped using his powers to make sure he wouldn't harm anyone ever again. But along with it, he shut off his ability to express himself. Because no matter how different or unnatural he is, his psychic powers are still a part of who he is. And silencing that part of him means silencing himself. So he tried to find ways to feel accepted, changing himself for the sake of validation. But as time passes, he learns that maybe being himself isn't as wrong as everyone made it seem. Yet, in his journey, how did he face the pressure of being told to be normal? Mob was easily influenced by those around him. He took what others said about him to heart and made his decisions based on that alone, because he genuinely believed that there was something wrong with him. It only got worse when he encountered an evil spirit haunting another school, who told the mob that, just like him, he was nothing more than a loser whose youth would go to waste. And it made him think, was he really that worthless? Before he realized it, he was searching for ways to find something that would make him whole, something that would define him, something other than the powers he disliked. And he found his answer at a body improvement club, thinking if he grew muscles, he would fit in. And only then people would stop calling him weird and socially awkward. Yet, his desire to grow stronger comes from wanting to be popular, rather than something he really wanted to do. Since Mob was easily persuaded into other ways when people presented alternatives for popularity, such as when his classmates suggested reading minds using his power to get popular, or when Dimple tried to recruit him for his own cult. And even later on in the anime, when his other classmate tried to convince him to be the leader of a religion that formed around Mob. It's always what others want you to become, and never what you want to become. Like Mob here, we bend to other people's opinions because it hurts when people think of us in a bad light. All of it stems from insecurity. That quiet voice telling us to be ashamed of the parts of ourselves that don't feel normal. So what do we do with it? We try our best to fix our insecurities. But insecurities aren't flaws that need to be corrected. Because when we try to fix them, what we're really doing is finding ways to cover them up. Maybe through means of fame, achievements, physical attractiveness, and everything like it. But maybe we're going it the wrong way. Maybe the way to heal our insecurities is to embrace them, accepting that they are a part of us, rather than hiding and compensating for it. But that's easier said than done, right? We can't help ourselves if other people's opinions bother us so much. No one wants to be hated. And in our attempt to feel more liked, we repress our real selves, just like how Mob hid his powers from everyone. Mob's explosion counter, the one that counts from 0 to 100, doesn't just represent his own powers, but it shows us what can possibly happen when we're not given the space to be able to truly express ourselves. And I'm not talking about the destruction Mob causes in that state. I'm talking about the emotional turmoil that rages within him. The intensity of his psychic powers is directly tied to his emotions. As he gets more emotional, his power bubbles up along with how he feels. Anger, sadness, hostility, an explosion of strong emotions burst through once we've repressed ourselves long enough. And for Mob, he stopped expressing his emotions the moment he stopped using his powers to protect others. Ever since then, he closed himself off and bottled up everything inside of him. The mistake he and the people around him made was acting as if that side of Mob, his powers, his emotions, were separate from the normal version of him. Near the end of the anime, Ritsu, Mob's little brother, realizes that mistake, and it resulted in a whirlwind of confusion, hurt, and misunderstanding. Because we can never be sure what someone's inner world looks like, or how they carry it through the world. Mob, as someone who can see spirits while still trying to live a normal life and following the norms, struggles to balance both. One moment where this stood out was when he was with Reagan, his self-proclaimed master, trying to deal with a family of spirits, but he hesitated to exorcise them because he understood that the spirits weren't hostile, even when Dimple tried to provoke them. He was torn apart between fulfilling the wishes of Reagan's client or extending his empathy towards the spirits. Yet only he is the one who can understand how hard it is to have these kinds of conflicts every single day, trying to follow the acceptable norms by hiding his powers and this world of his. He carries burdens most people don't. And when others insist that part of you shouldn't exist just to make their lives easier, it leaves you feeling trapped, helpless. It's the same with people in real life. And while powers don't exist, many different worlds do. Take an artist, for example. Not everyone has an interest in art, but those who do have their own kinds of unique struggles. We see the masterpiece, their works, and praise their talent. We don't see the dozens of sketches thrown in the trash, the sleepless nights, the quiet frustration of feeling invisible. All of it is hidden beneath the surface. And we, who never walked the same path as them, sometimes see their problems as insignificant. They never speak about it because they were made to feel like their unique struggles don't fit the norm and is not a real problem. And if you think about it, this is just one of the many unique worlds people have. That's why when you feel denied of the things that make us feel special, it can be very isolating. It is why being able to express all parts of yourself is important. But even so, just like a coin, there are two sides to this problem. On one side, we're too scared to show a part of ourselves to anyone. And on the other side, we let one part of ourselves define our entire being. Something you might have noticed while watching the anime is how it frequently repeats the message, "You're not special," emphasizing no matter what characteristics or traits we have, we're human just like everyone else. This is what Reagan instilled in Mob ever since he was young. As a result, he never used his powers for his own gain. But other people in the anime aren't as lucky to have someone guide them, just as Reagan did for Mob. Ritsu is one of those people. Ever since he was little, he wanted to have psychic powers just as Mob does, because he thought if Mob can do it, then why can't he? That jealousy quietly built up. He couldn't understand why someone like Mob, who seemed so ordinary to him, was the one blessed with powers. What made him so special? The irony is that he has everything Mob ever wanted. Good grades, friends, a position as the vice president of his school, and just about everything he needs to fit in. But that wasn't enough. He didn't want to just fit in. He wanted to stand out. He wanted to be special. Ritsu was just tired of blending in the background and putting up a facade to keep up appearances. Ritsu soon reached his breaking point when his friend told him this. Stop pretending to be humble when you know you're much more than that. Don't try to be like your older brother. It only fueled more of his bitterness and find ways to bring out his powers. And when he did, he lost his way as he got drunk on power. He no longer was the model student people looked up to. He believed he was finally free, abusing his powers for his own gain and letting it define who he was. While Ritsu's story might be more extreme, we've all experienced something similar, just on a more personal scale, especially when it comes to the talents or skills we think define us. Sometimes we base our own personalities on something we're good at, because it's one of the few things that actually gets us noticed. Because with talents, even if there are some parts of us that people hate, as long as we're able to flaunt our skills and talent, there will always be one person who will at least like or respect that trait of you. It's a belief some of us unconsciously internalized, when our only means of getting validation is through those. But if you take a step back and think for a moment, in a way, isn't the approval we get from our skills something a bit of a lie? Yes, people may praise, compliment, and even envy us, but they're only seeing one part of you and not the rest. Not the actual pieces of you that make you a person. Take that away, and what will be left of us? That's the same question Mob asked Teru, another antagonist who abused his powers for his selfish gain. To the both of them, the answer was clear. They would be nothing. But they're only nothing because they can't see that being their kind, authentic selves has value. As Reagan once told Mob, the truth behind one's charm is kindness. Be a good person, that is all. And we often miss this perspective because we try to build ourselves into something more than we are now. While improving and changing yourself isn't bad, doing it for the wrong reasons results in leaving our genuine selves behind most of the time. Sometimes we pursue hobbies or activities we think are what we truly want and own. But deep down, there's that nagging feeling that the reason we do all of these is because what we truly want is to be seen. For Mob, his crush, Tsubomi, is one of the major reasons why he wants to improve himself. Yet, when he was asked what he liked about her, he couldn't give an answer. It turns out, his reasons for falling in love with her are complicated. During his rampage, he had an inner battle between two sides of him, his powers and his self without them. That's when he came to face the truth that he loved Tsubomi simply because she once didn't treat him differently despite having powers. And that part of him is longing for that security to experience it once again. And that's when he came to this messed up conclusion. If she could love this messy part of me, this fearsome and complicated side of me, she would be able to love all parts of me. He knew this sounded insane, but his real self was slowly deteriorating, his powers becoming his identity. But isn't that an extremely unfair judgment? When you believe only one part of you deserves love, you'll warp your identity around it. But people aren't just one thing. Like a puzzle, you're only whole when all the pieces fit together. And when all the pieces fall into place, that's when you can truly appreciate the image created by this complicated puzzle. The image of you. This is something Mob desperately needed to understand, and the one who was able to make him realize it was none other than his mentor, Reagan. As Mob continues his violent storm through the city, Reagan, without powers, rushes to stop him, even if it means losing his own life. He hadn't realized how much Mob had been holding in, and he felt guilty and responsible, especially considering how he had used and lied to Mob about having psychic powers. But deep down, Mob already knew the truth. But this version of himself refused to listen. He believed Reagan feared him and perhaps even resented him for the lies. Yet, with determination and Dimple's help, Reagan broke through and said what he had needed to say for so long. Reagan had no powers. It all was a lie. In that moment, Mob's fury stopped. He never expected Reagan to admit his deceit. Ashamed of his actions, Reagan revealed the truth, that he had always hidden behind titles and achievements that weren't real, pretending to be a great psychic. But even in his shame, Reagan told Mob that there are always different sides to a person, both good and bad. These sides don't make a person any less or more than another. At our core, we're all the same. Reagan didn't blame or deny Mob of his messy side or even his actions, and he encouraged him to accept himself. Those words were exactly what Mob needed, because through Reagan's actions, he saw that being flawed, being not okay, is okay. Reagan, who had always tried to act perfect, despite Mob knowing on some level that he was faking it, had finally dropped the act. What Mob saw in that moment was authenticity in its most beautiful flawed form. He followed Reagan's lead and found the courage to accept both sides of himself and was finally free to act as his true self. So I guess what I'm really trying to say here is, you don't have to reject what makes you different, but you don't have to rely on it either. It's about letting all parts of you exist without being too hard on yourself, because at the end of the day, we're all kind of complicated and messed up on the inside, and it's through embracing both the good and the bad that we can truly understand ourselves. All of this, it was never about being special. It was about realizing that you don't need to be special. I know that I've always emphasized how we should always look out for others and give kindness through my other videos, but I've forgotten the most important thing to consider before giving a part of us to people, and that's always to be kind to yourself first. There's no shame in choosing yourself, and when you feel like you don't have anything to give, then maybe we should ask what we can give ourselves first. And still, to me, even if I don't know you, you will always be enough.